Hello my darling, it's Chanel, and today I am doing a follow-up video to the one I made about my journey with using psilocybin as a treatment for my mental health issues. I've had a lot of questions from that video, and a lot of them are to do with follow-ups. How am I doing now? What am I still doing? How long does it last? And things of that nature. So I thought, let me give a refresher and let you all know how I'm going and what I'm up to in regards to my mental health journey. So I have just had my yearly big psilocybin trip 2 days ago. It is why I am still a little, I'd say, exhausted, and my voice isn't as strong, but I wanted to talk about it while I was still fresh from the experience. So we'll talk about that particular journey at the end, and I will talk about sort of the process I've been going through in the beginning. So let's begin by saying that yes, once a year I do a large dose of psilocybin. Now, when I say large, I just mean enough to kick me into that sort of heroic dose experience. And for me, that has been anywhere from 2 grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms to 6.5 grams. The 2 grams I wasn't even expecting to have a heroic dose experience with. I just thought, I feel like having a pain-free, content, happy day. But the mushrooms thought otherwise. They thought, Chanel, actually, you need to work on something. So this 2 grams is going to be enough, babes, to get you to do the shadow work. So yes, as low as 2 grams has enabled me to trip. And there were times when I did have to take 6.5 grams. But generally what I normally do is I'll start with 3. And if after 30 minutes I'm not feeling the effect, I take another gram, and then after 20 minutes another gram, and then after 15 another gram. You get the gist until I'm in that state. I get a lot of questions of where I source my mushrooms, and I forage for them. We're lucky that I guess in the state I live in there are mushrooms in the natural forests and things. I know in Australia they're still undergoing the current trial, so I feel like at some point they will be made available pharmaceutically. And with Australia, we do have Medicare, so hopefully they would fall under that if you've been prescribed them by a psychologist or doctor. At the moment, it's not the case, but I always just say to people, ask friends and family, people you trust, because you never know who knows someone that could get them for you. Besides my first trip, I now always do it solo. I prefer to not be around any other energies besides my pets while I am in the zone. Obviously that first time I had my ex-partner there, just in case I had a bad reaction, but mushrooms have been really good to me. So all the trips I have had, they never ask more for me than I'm able to give. It's quite an intense experience, but with mushrooms, I still have a modicum of control in that if I open my eyes, I am very much centered and anchored back in the present, in my body, in my current space, and I can get up and tend to my body's needs. So I'm able to keep myself hydrated, use the bathroom, stretch my body. Like I said, if anything that is happening medicinally with the trip is too intense, I can simply open my eyes and take a breather. And I really appreciate, sorry, the camera adjusted itself. Hopefully it's still fine. But I really appreciate that I'm able to still have some control whilst going through the journey. For me, I went to refresh people's memory of why I took psilocybin. I was experiencing, or had experienced pretty much my entire life, severe depression, anxiety, OCD, and suicidal ideation. Despite all other types of treatment, I was still trapped in that. And it was a holistic doctor who recommended I try psilocybin. And it works for me. So the experience that I have is basically for around 11 months. I have absolutely no suicidal ideation. That is completely gone. The depression is also completely gone. However, the anxiety and the OCD, and with the OCD for me, that means intrusive, violent thoughts, or repetitive, obsessive thinking, or physically, I pick my skin. Those things lessened severely. So with the anxiety, I tend to only have the anxiety with moments that would warrant some anxiety. Like if my child goes out of my sight and I don't know where they are, I might start to experience some anxiety. Or going on a first date, there's a mild level, but it's always mild. It's never severe, and it's never, I don't say like unnecessary or unprompted. With the OCD, it's, like I said, very muted. So for me, I can't keep track of the thought ones, but the physical OCD habits, maybe once or twice a month. So much, 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 much less. And that lasts for 11 months. And at that point, I'll start to notice creeping back in. So the thoughts might start creeping back in. Like with the OCD, I obsessively count. So I'll find myself starting to count in my head, or I'll wake up and feel anxious. I'll feel this feeling of dread and exhaustion and the feeling that life is pointless and what's the point of getting up? Just those kinds of things, which I'm very aware are not me. They're not from me. They're from the way that my brain was wired. And so when those things start happening, I am objectively able to spot them, notice them, and plan ahead to do another big trip, to hit the reset button. Pretty much it just boots everything, shuts everything down, wipes the slate clean, and starts up again. And I think also too, every single time with a mushroom trip, the one commonality with all of them is the complete dissolution and ego death. All of your previous paradigms, thought patterns, beliefs, they're all reset, they're wiped clean. You start fresh, and then you also come back with this just sense of gratitude and some connection to something, whether it's source, universe, mother, God, whatever you want to call it, your soul. You feel connected. So that is something that happens for me every time. I have done 6 trips. So there was the 1-2 gram ones in there that I was not meant to be a heroic trip, but that's how it turned out. But so I have done 6 big mushroom trips since beginning my journey, and they continue to work for me, and they continue to be really therapeutic experiences. It's hardcore therapy and shadow work. And with all the trips too, there is also a physical component where my body is absolutely free of pain. So all the chronic illnesses that I have, I'm completely symptom free of them whilst in the trip. So it does return after the trip ends, but whilst I'm in the trip, my God, does it feel amazing. It feels absolutely blissful to be in this body. You cannot be uncomfortable in the body. So it is just a wonderful experience as well, and a good break. It's good to have that break from pain. So the way I still take them is the same. I weigh mine dried. I put them in a mug. I get hot water, lemon and honey, and I let it sit for at least 10 minutes. So it's not boiling water, but it's hot water, so the mushrooms can soften, and so they're easier to eat because they can be a bit woody and dry otherwise. And then I will sit there with the cup and set my intention for my practice, eat the mushrooms, drink the tea. The next moment differs, so sometimes it can take up to 30 minutes for them to kick in. This current trip took only 5 minutes for me to start to feel the first effects, and the first effects are always the worst. It is the part of the trip I do not enjoy, and that always almost turns me off doing it. But what I feel is nausea and extreme cold, like from the inside of my body. Doesn't matter how many layers I put on. I put blankets and socks and things, I will feel cold regardless, but having all the layers definitely does help. And I get like a tingling in my teeth, I get a sort of fuzzy headache feeling, and tinnitus sometimes. This time I had the tinnitus, and I find what helps with that is while I'm in this, I call it the purgatory zone. It's that in-between limbo state from pre-trip to in the trip. And while I'm in this waiting room to help with the tinnitus, I'll put on calming sounds. So I put on this one that was supposedly the heart chakra hertz. I'll put the number of the hertz up here, and it was paired with water sounds and bird song, and that helps just to keep me calm. And I just have to focus on my breathing and allowing everything to be, so that you don't get agitated or worked up. But then as soon as that state passes and I'm now tripping, I will turn the music off. So once again, I'm still lucid enough to open my eyes, stop the music, because otherwise I get trapped in sounds. Some people really enjoy the experience of music or having sounds. For me, I need silence so I can do the inner work. Otherwise, I'm just going to get stuck in a song. And yeah, that's not the experience I want to have. I'm doing this to improve my mental health and my enjoyment of living. And then the tripping state for me tends to always last between 4 to 6 hours. It's never gone over 6 hours. You just come to this point where you're like awake. You close your eyes and there's no more traveling or unraveling of things. It's just you again in your thoughts alone. So that's when I know, okay, I'm done now. I always make sure to hydrate myself. I go in fasted still every time, so I like to do it in the morning because I also like to be during the daylight hours on the shroom trip, as I love the sun on my skin, and that's also why I do it in summer, so that I can go and lie on the grass either during the trip or after the trip. There's always some form of grounding, of connecting to the earth and feeling the elements on your skin. And then when I want to eat, I don't really eat during the trip, it's always afterwards. The first thing I always eat is fresh fruit or veggies from my garden, just anything that's been grown in the soil and kissed by the sun. And then later on, I might have something more substantial like nuts or sweet potatoes, things of that nature. But the first day I tend to stay vegan, so to speak. And I find it's always a good reset for food whenever you trip. I don't know if this is the case for everyone, but for me personally, I absolutely do not want anything processed at all. I want very vibrant, alive foods. And then post-trip, it's quite similar, the same. I will experience fatigue and a headache. And that will always last at least that day. And then the next day it might completely be gone, or I might only be tired and the headache's gone, or I could still have a headache and be fatigued. But I always block the 2 days minimum, so the day of the trip and day after for recovery. The day after, you're still kind of reacclimating to being a human again and being in the world, so to speak. So you need that day also for yourself. And I also prefer to be alone. So yeah, I'm very hermetic in my travels and journeys. I just want to be still and not have anybody asking anything of me, just have my own resources to myself. I have considered microdosing, but it's just a question of supply to do that. I know Paul Stamets has a protocol for that, because I thought maybe trying that this year to see if it negates the need to do a big trip which lasts 2 days. Maybe if I start to hear, the negative self-talk and things again, I can try microdosing and see if that just keeps it at bay, and if that is something my body responds well to or not. So I'm going to try that this year once, like I said, the previous mental health conditions start returning, to see if that's enough and I don't have to do any more big trips. But I think that's everything that's sort of generic about how I use psilocybin to stay depression, anxiety, heavy OCD, PTSD free. I don't really talk about the PTSD stuff because that's personal, like from experiences that have happened in my life and personal triggers I have regarding certain things. But the shrooms also help that. So even though I still remember the events that occurred to me, I am no longer connected to them with a physical response. And if someone else is talking about their experience with something that I have experienced, I'm not triggered by that. I'm not brought back to that place and in that state of fear and hurt and suffering. It's like, oh, I've been there, I can give you empathy, and I'm also able to have forgiveness for the people that perpetrated the violence against me. So shrooms also helped me with that as well. It helped me get distance from it. Like, I still remember, but I'm not triggered by it any longer. So now I'm going to tell you about this particular trip. Every single trip is different. They bring up different things. Now, even at this point, I thought, is there anything left for me to work through? I feel like I'm pretty good in terms of my hang-ups, etc., etc. But that's, I guess, just my ego talking. But yeah, it turns out, no, there were things that were limiting my experience of this world and that were influencing my behaviors and actions. And I'm so glad that I did the trip. At one point, I thought of postponing it because, the negative mental health stuff was still very mild. I thought I could go, 2 months longer. But I realized after the trip that post-trip me is very different to pre-trip me. And the post-trip me now will be making different decisions going forward than pre-trip Chanel would have. So I'm very glad that I've had this experience early in the year so that it will influence the rest of my year. Speaking of, I will tell you how I began this trip. So usually I do the setting and intention. So I do mine in my house where I feel very safe and comfortable and it is familiar and warm and cozy. The setting the intention, I will hold my tea, and I'm just going to shut my door because I can tell my daughter's on the phone. I will normally think about, perhaps, I normally try to infuse the tea with feelings of I'm looking for peace and love and wisdom and guidance, I guess, would be the main things that I would be putting in my mind for the trip. But also openness. to whatever the mushrooms want to show me and have me experience. This time though, right before I decided to trip, so this time I decided to do it in bed. And normally I don't, normally I snuggle up in the lounge room, but for some reason I wanted to be in bed this time, and it became quite apparent. Obviously subconscious me was guiding my actions in some way, but I decided to be in here, and I decided to pull a card before my trip. So I do use tarot and oracle decks, and I felt called to use this oracle deck that I had just come in, and it's called the Phyllis Oracle, and it's a cat deck. And the card that I pulled when thinking about the trip that I was going on, this is after I'd ingested the mushrooms, was titled Infinite Ripples. So this is the card, and I'm just going to read you the message that I got from the card right before I decided to start the trip. Long-lasting impression. Even the smallest action can have a profound influence on the lives of others. The most seemingly insignificant gestures can leave a long-lasting impression. Recognize the potential you hold to shape someone's life forever through your words and actions. This card invites you to embrace your power, to make a positive difference, and emphasizes the importance of considering the legacy of kindness you can leave behind. The same way you remember the words and actions that have touched your heart, others remember the moments you've shared with them. Your small acts, even those you might consider insignificant, can influence someone's life for years, perhaps even forever. Embrace the understanding that your words and deeds carry weight, and consciously choose to leave behind a legacy of kindness and positivity that resonates through the lives you touch in ways you may never fully realize. And I feel like that's not just the ripples that you create in other people's life, but your own life too. And I thought it was just so fitting for the trip that I had this time. So I read my card. I felt a profound message from it. It resonated deeply with me. And then I got into my bed. My cats came and kept me company the whole time. And as I said, I listened to the music while I was getting through the nausea and other sensations. And then the trip began. This time around, I only needed 3 grams. I was going to take 4 to kind of guarantee a trip, but something in me told me that I didn't need that much. And so I took 3, and 3 worked. So once again, I find with each trip, I become more in tune with my intuition and my gut. But with my trips, there are little messages that pop through, and then there are also main themes, like the main meat of the lesson it wants to help you learn. And with this one, while I was sitting in bed, the main theme was rest. It was trying to teach me that I need to put my own oxygen mask on first before helping others. Right before the trip, a few days before, I was talking to my ex-boyfriend about how I've always had insomnia, and no matter what treatment I've taken, whether natural or pharmaceutical, nothing has worked. And the doctors even sent me to a sleep lab to see if there was a physiological reason. And the doctors there said that I just had spontaneous arousal. So my brain would just wake me up spontaneously for no discernible reason. And in the space of, I think, a 5-hour sleep, I spontaneously was fully awake 14 times. And when I asked them, why is that happening? They said it could be linked to past traumas. So maybe you can do, hypnosis therapy. They said some people's brains are just wired this way. In the long distant past, there'd be members of the tribe, and their job was to sleep on the outskirts and to alert the other tribe who were resting deeply if there were any predators coming. So they were sort of able to sleep lightly enough to still hear their surroundings and be alert. And obviously this did serve me well in motherhood, when you do need to be responsive and alert to the needs of your infant. But for the rest of my life, it has only caused me health issues. And my ex and I were trying to understand maybe what's causing me not being able to fall asleep. And there were multiple reasons. So one of which is, as a child, I didn't feel safe. And so I was always on high alert and couldn't ever allow myself to fall asleep because I didn't trust the people around me to take care of me. Then as an adult, that led me to be someone who wanted to make sure they were always available to help others in their time of need. So I guess I wasn't allowing myself to rest, because what if case someone needs me? I need to be able to get up, be immediately alert and on hand at all times for everyone else. I also was always, I felt guilty for resting. I thought that for me it would always be, I'll rest after. I've cleaned the house. I'll rest after I've helped this person. I'll rest after I've finished my work. It was always delayed. Rest, I guess, had to be earned. And even when I'd earned it, even though rest is a right, I still felt guilty for doing it. I felt guilty that my energy levels too were not high, and that I was not showing up as fully as I wanted to for people, for everyone else. But my fear of not showing up for others was stopping me from showing up for myself. I do enough, I am enough, and for this one day, I wanted to choose myself first. I wanted to fill up my own cup first, because I always tell you, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's the same, you could use the analogy of you're a lifeboat. How are you going to save people if you don't schedule in maintenance days to fix up all the holes? Babes, eventually you're going to try to help and you're all going to drown, because human beings also need maintenance. We need downtime, we need rest and repairing. And I needed to prioritize taking care of myself over taking care of others. And it was something I struggled so hard with, because I felt that that's a selfish thing to do, but it's not. Someone has to look out for me, and that's got to be me. And I'm allowed to put myself on do not disturb and unplug from the world to make it so that I am only connected to myself. And while I was struggling with this, even though my phone was on do not disturb, it is programs that if my children message or call, it will come through. And both of them did. And I read both of their messages and I said to myself, Chanel, are they in mortal peril? Or can they figure this out themselves or ask someone else for help? And I thought, it's the latter. So I told them, I'm sorry, my darling, I can't help you at this time. And I allowed them to handle it. I allowed them to lean on others. I don't have to be the one every single time for other people to lean on and to come to. I am allowed to say, hey, I'd love to help you, but I'm not in a place to do that today. It's just about having boundaries and letting people know where you're at. And with my kids, I was always on call 24/7 every single time. And well, okay, that's great to have someone, they can rely on 24/7. It's not great for me. I am getting sucked dry and worn out. And I realized there's not been a single day on this earth where my children haven't come to me from something, haven't demanded something of me. Even on the days they're with their dad, they will always call me to vent, to offload, if you will. And I've always responded and shown up. And it's not that I'm going to completely ignore my children, but if I'm feeling like, hey, I need a day just for Chanel and I need to rest and I need to just be with me, I'm going to let them know, darlings, I love you, but if you message me today, I will not reply unless it's an absolute emergency. Please ask so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so to give you a hand with anything. I'll be back online tomorrow, so it's time to put the phone off the hook. But yes, it still took me ages to fall asleep. I just had this, I couldn't let go. I couldn't let go and allow myself to be completely unconscious and unavailable. It took forever. I was fighting myself and I kept thinking, oh, the cats, it's lunchtime for the cats. I need to get up and feed the cats. And I woke myself up and all three cats were lying happily and peacefully next to me. And I said, Chanel, if they need something from you, they will let you know. You've got to let go of these self-placed obligations and responsibilities and be more flexible in your burdens, so to speak. You don't have to do everything at a certain time because it has to be done then. Really think, what do I need to do now? What is more crucial? What is more beneficial to me in this point of time? Like I said, if the cats need to be fed, they'll let me know. And there was so much lessons too I learned from the cats. So in this experience, the cats looked extra floofy. Their floofiness was amazing, and I could see the cosmos in their eyes. And Blue especially was spending a lot of time with me, and I remember at one stage I was patting her and I got into this perfect flow. I can't even describe it, but she got petted like she never got petted in her life. But the mushrooms told me, look at the cats, they bring you comfort. And they're the perfect example of comfort in regards to how they live for their own comfort. Cats will eat when they want to eat, sleep when they want to sleep, play when they want to play, and ask for attention and affection when they want attention and affection. They are never they never put themselves in discomfort. And the mushrooms want me to be more like the cats. Like, hey, you need to put your comfort first. Whatever the situation, you've got to find the best way for it to be in flow with you. Make yourself more comfortable, express your boundaries, and fulfill your needs when they need to be fulfilled. Stop postponing your own pleasure and needs for everyone else's. There's also a point where I had a song lyric play over and over in my head, and sometimes this happens. I'll be a repeating motif or thing, and this time it was a song lyric, and it was "Good Luck Babe" from Chapel Roan. So that was said a lot during the trip. It's like they're cheering me on, like, you can do this. But a big theme for the trip too was to trust myself. It's like, you've got to trust yourself. If someone needs you and you need to launch into action, trust that you can do it when it needs to be done. Don't always keep yourself on high alert. You can be of service when you need to be of service, and the rest of the time is for you. I have to laugh as well, because there was obviously, I think for most people, a lot of guilt tied around to resting. That sleeping is not productive, doing nothing is not productive, and lazy. Not for me anymore. There was this whole, I was always like, oh, there's cleaning to be done. I need to work. We're going on a holiday today. And I'll need money to buy food and things on the holiday. I should really have been working today. Why did I do this trip today and put myself out of commission? While I was sleeping, all of the ETF stocks and bonds that I have invested in paid their dividends. So I woke up with $422, which is more than I would have made if I had worked the entire day, and which is more than enough for our expenses on this trip. I also looked up 422 because it felt like it might have been an angel number, and it was. And 422 means that I will inspire other people towards peace and harmony, and that I need to work on my own passions. And I'm like, okay, noted, saved, we'll be referencing. There was also, I guess, a lot of reflection too on dating, because I've been single for 2 years and I have been on and off dating apps and finding a lot of frustration with it. And I was thinking, let's look at the app. Is this coming from a choice of love or fear? And I was able to realize that it was coming from a place of fear. So for me, I have 3 grandmothers who all passed away due to complications from dementia and psychosis. They, in their later stages of life, lost themselves. And I guess I had a fear that if I didn't find someone to live life with me and to remember all of the things that we did, that if one day I end up becoming lost, everything I have done will be forgotten. And it was in that moment, once again, mushrooms allow you to realize that no, it won't be, Chanel, because your soul is an eternal witness. The universe is constantly witnessing every single life that has happened, will happen, and is happening at this point in time. That even if future Chanel has lost and forgotten, this Chanel, the soul that you are, because like I said, during the trip, you sort of go back, get stripped back to your core component, which I guess I call a soul. She will remember, they will remember for the both of you. And if, like I said, future Chanel in this flesh body with her flesh brain doesn't remember, it doesn't make a difference to what happened. I loved, I lost, I lived, and that is true. And that remains no matter what happens to this human consciousness. I am an eternal witness of life, and I don't have to have another human being physically with me to make my life meaningful and remembered. And also I felt too that I was putting too much emphasis on romantic love and not appreciating all the other kinds of love that I have in my life. The love of my friends, of my family, of my children, of my pets, of myself, of the earth. Love is love is love is love is love. Would I love to have romantic love again? To find another soul? To do things with and enjoy things with and discover things about? Yes, absolutely. I'm a romantic. That would be wonderful. I have been blessed to have loved 2 people romantically, and I have a heart that is open to loving more. But also, once again, I have to remember that I am not alone, that I am with myself, and that I am able to give myself that love that a romantic partner could give me. I can date myself, I can romance myself, and I can relish and revel in all of the other relationships I have in my life and give them some romance too. But for me, a big takeaway was to get off the apps. The apps might work for some people. They did allow me to find my ex-boyfriend, but I feel like we would have found each other some way. We were destined to meet. We were soulmates. We've been friends throughout lifetimes. And, you know, he was a pivotal soul meeting for me in regards to the trajectory of the rest of my life. And we're still best friends to this day. But at this moment in time, dating apps were just increasing the amount of disconnectedness that I felt. I hated having to judge people's profiles, to try and converse digitally without any sort of human nuance available, and energetic reads. And then I ended up going on a date with people to meet them in person, just realized there wasn't a romantic connection there. It was 1,000 mini heartbreaks every single time. And it was becoming a drain on my energy rather than an uplifting experience. I did meet some lovely people. I also met some harmful people, but I just felt like my time could be better spent. I hate being on my phone, and I felt this need every day to check my new matches, to check on the conversations I was having, and it wasn't serving me. So I have deleted the app, and I'm allowing romance to fate to in-person meetings by chance, because nothing compares from an in-person experience with someone. You get just so much more information than is given written on an app from being in face-to-face with another human being and in their energy field. After, there was a whole bunch of other things. There is not enough time in the world and not enough memory for me to really unpack everything that I experienced during this trip. I'm still sifting through and seeing and uncovering little moments that occurred and little pieces of wisdom and little things to put into practice. It will be an ongoing thing for me. I always find it lasts weeks, months, or with certain things that happen that will trigger a memory of an experience that you had. But I did stay in this bedroom until I was rested. And then I got up, I ate some food. I let the people know who I'd let know that I was unplugging myself, that I was now available if they needed, but if not, I would like to remain on Do Not Disturb for the rest of the day. And I love the people in my life because they all completely understood and said, no worries, babes, you take it easy. We love you. So once again, I'm very, very, very fucking blessed. And the shrooms do highlight everything that you do have rather than focusing on the lack. They're always rebuilding you better. And with love. It's that mother love, you know. It's sometimes harsh and incredibly honest, but it is healing and nurturing at the same time. So after I had some water, I grabbed some fruit, and then I went into my garden, and I went barefoot. I always love to take my shoes off, and I sat with my feet on the earth, the sun on my skin, the wind in my hair, the fruits of my labor on my tongue, and I watched the butterflies and the dragonflies dance, and I was at peace. And there's no way to describe how you feel when you go and sit in nature, either on your trip or just post-trip. And like I said, pulling the fruits from my garden, it just further revitalized my love of growing things, of being part of the earth and working with Mother Nature and eating from the seeds that I had planted and watered and grown and cared for. And I just sat. I watched the clouds and the life all around me, and once again was just so grateful to be here now at this point in time in this collective consciousness. So it was another wonderful experience. I had a headache and extreme fatigue on the day. The next day I woke up still fatigued, but my headache had gone. My Aura ring did tell me that my HRV was alarmingly low. They did do a symptom warning, believing that perhaps I might be getting sick. It's now the second day, and I've had another I've had another night of very little sleep and poor recovery. So I'm not quite sure if it's just the post-shroom symptoms or if I actually am getting ill. Time will tell. I am trying to nurture myself as much as I can, but generally I only need one full day afterwards to recover and be well, even though mentally I might still be readjusting to the world. But I'm always returned to myself, just filled with so much love for myself, for everyone, for the world, for the universe, for the experience of it all. But hopefully that helped answer the questions of all those people who wanted follow-ups on how I'm going, what I'm still doing. If there's anything else that I didn't answer, let me know. I was really hoping to tackle it all, but I'm human, I'm fallible, and sometimes, you know, I forget things. But yeah, I'm very thankful for psilocybin, that there is an organism on earth that is able to help me transcend and break free from these limitations that come with the human construct I am in, and that allow me to experience more of the beauty and pleasure of life here on earth. Remember that not everything is a panacea for all. Sometimes it is a poison. You have to, and unfortunately it's a trial and error method. Shrooms did work for me, but I know that they don't work for everyone. Just like marijuana works for a lot of people, it does not work for me. LSD works for people, it does not work for me. So, you know, everything is different and everybody responds differently to things. As usual, I always say, if it's your first time, you start small. Start small, my dude. Try 0.5 gram, then try 1 gram, then try 1.5 grams. Like, that's the way to do it. Little by little, see how you're feeling, how you're responding. If you're going to try larger amounts, I always recommend having someone you love and trust there with you, just in case. I hope that, though, it is something that is more accessible for people to try. I feel like if you can try pharmaceutical drugs, why can't this be also something that is available to people to try when it has been proven? This and other psychedelics, I know, like MDMA, for instance, and ketamine and all these other ones do improve certain people's quality of life. And I feel like they should be made more accessible through the medical system for people to try to see if it works. Because there is nothing, because being trapped in a hellscape in here makes it almost impossible to enjoy everything out here. I have been there. I'm sorry for those who are still there. I hope one day you find something to help you. I love you. And until next time, stay wild, star child.